Previously on Returned from Hell, Lopez had managed to gain new abilities in the system dimension. Tomas advised him to take the test to earn a rank. However, during the exam, the machine malfunctioned because the protagonist's power wasn't from this world. Now, the boy must take the ancient test to obtain his rank, and Serp will do whatever he can to prevent him from succeeding. But before we continue, remember that everything you're about to see is a fictional story. Do not attempt or imitate any violent or dangerous actions. With that said, let's dive back into the story. Returning to Lopez, who was talking to Tomas, the protagonist explained that he did everything Tomas told him, but in the end, the energy orb just exploded. Lopez was standing, listening to Tomas, while sensing someone was watching him. There was someone hunting him. From a building under construction, he could see a flash of light. It was the hunter Serp had sent to eliminate the boy. We'll call her Sika. The girl noted that Lopez didn't seem like much. One shot with this reinforced weapon should be enough. But then she noticed the protagonist was looking right at her. That surprised her. She hadn't made any move to reveal herself, so how did he know about her? Nevertheless, she didn't plan to miss. This shot was aimed directly at his head. The protagonist knew perfectly well about Sika. Pointing to his own head, he signaled her to shoot here. The girl thought she was going crazy, hearing him, but still, she powered up and fired without hesitation. Lopez had her position locked in. And this bullet wasn't just any bullet. It was quite powerful. It had tremendous energy, but despite that, Lopez dispersed the energy from the shot. The bullet wasn't able to penetrate his skin. Sika was shaking, realizing she was dealing with some kind of monster. So, she started to run. She couldn't let Lopez catch her, but the boy's dagger was already in motion, embedding itself in the assassin's leg. She inevitably fell to the ground, taken down. With his shadow energy, Lopez can track anyone looking for trouble. The protagonist stated that her only option now was to face him, as there was nowhere left to run. Sika pulled out a gun, impressed that Lopez was completely unfazed after taking her shot. "Where are you from?" she asked in disbelief. Lopez yelled, "From hell." He told her he was a returnee from hell. The girl started shooting, shouting that the boy was insane. But after firing so many times, she realized she didn't stand a chance against Lopez. The protagonist grabbed her by the neck and slammed her against the concrete. Shadows materialized on his back, these things absorbing the girl. Inevitably, she lost consciousness. Lopez remarked that this must be a joke. How could she faint so easily? However, he began to search through her belongings. He noticed that Sika had done her homework on him. Someone was targeting him and his family. The shadows tightened around Sika to wake her up. The protagonist told her he'd give her one chance, and she had to answer truthfully. Who sent her to ruin his life? The assassin thought she couldn't reveal Serp's name. She'd pay dearly for it. So she claimed it was Yops, that thug who had paid her to do it. She assured him that if he let her go, she'd tell him where Yops was. But Lopez attacked her and almost killed her with a shot. Sika swore she was telling the truth. But Lopez wasn't fooled. An assassin wouldn't spill the truth so easily, and he'd already warned her. He'd give her one last chance. Who was it? The girl realized she was trapped. If she revealed it was Serp, he'd kill her in retaliation. It didn't matter. She'd be killed either way. The girl placed her hand on her chest, shouting at Lopez to go to hell. It looked like she was about to self-destruct, but before she could, she took a powerful blow to the chest. The protagonist eliminated her before she could cause any trouble. He sighed, saying he was tired of hell. This was a problem. He still hadn't found out who was really behind this. Maybe he needed to use the memory of the dead. He had that skill recorded in his journal. He'd have to remember it well to do it right. However, to acquire that ability, he'd need to complete a challenge. The Pantheon portal opened. If he wanted to see the assassin's memories, he'd have to go to the Pantheon. The protagonist decided to go, ensuring that this fight wouldn't look too alarming. When he arrived, the system told him what mission he had to complete if he wanted the dead's ability. Specifically, It was an ability to resurrect the dead and turn them into loyal servants, one of the best skills he'd acquired. It was one of the reasons he conquered Hell in under a century. Every enemy he defeated joined his ranks. He remembered that in his last years, his troops weren't much help, as his own attack power alone was enough to defeat the last demons he faced. Now, the system gave him the option to recreate the first time he gained that ability. So he accepted the challenge. It would always be useful in the human world. The dimension began to distort, and soon enough, he was back in the Valley of the Dead. The boy noted that the cave's boss wasn't far from here. There used to be a boat, but it was gone. This was a problem. He couldn't cross this river just like that. The system set the mission's guidelines. A medium difficulty mission, 30 minutes, and he had to destroy all the monsters in this area. The creatures noticed the boy from afar. These were the monsters Lopez had to defeat, including the boss, of course. They were also celestial machines, but a different kind. The trick was that the protagonist couldn't find a shortcut if he wanted to eliminate these things. A spider, it's a machine, but we'll call it a spider, attacked the boy with a kind of acid. As you can see, there was no time for distractions. The boy figured that by eliminating these machines, the system might give him transport. This thing increased in size, and the protagonist was determined not to be defeated. Lopez used the dagger the system had given him days ago, and in one swift move he took down the first monster with ease. Despite defeating it, he had to remember it wasn't a 1v1 battle. In an instant, he was surrounded by acid bullets shot by other spiders. The boy knew he was surrounded and couldn't destroy them without getting splashed. So, he enveloped himself in energy and concentrated it to quickly create a strong shield. The boy managed to protect himself from the acid. Lopez noted that eliminating them one by one would be too tedious. Oddly, the spiders didn't want to face him directly, so the boy stomped powerfully on the ground, causing the monsters to come fight. This caused all the spiders hanging above to fall from the ceiling unexpectedly. Now he wanted to take advantage of their exposed state and eliminate them in one go. In a swift move, Lopez took down 3 in a second. He'd finally completed this phase of the mission. The system told the boy that there was still more to do, so it equipped him to face the remaining enemies. It was a kind of armor, but there was a catch. The first time he used it would be consequence-free. If he wanted to use it again after the mission, it would consume his willpower. Lopez immediately understood that the system wanted him to put on the armor to swim through the river of the dead. After a few minutes, finally, the boy had crossed the dreadful lake. With that phase complete, he moved on to the next dimension. This was the realm of the Ghost King. The boy knew that this place had been ravaged. Even the king's castle was gone. Then a powerful pressure started to set in. Something was causing the ground to collapse. Then, an obelisk was rising from the underworld. This was the pressure created by the Celestials. The protagonist assumed that to proceed to the next phase, he had to enter that place no matter what. However, something was emerging from the obelisk. A general who hunted Celestials hated this obelisk. According to the system, this mission was of high difficulty. The boy knew this wouldn't be as simple as he thought. Not only him. There was a troop of monsters ready to destroy the boy, so Lopez had no choice but to go all out. The attack against the boy began. He was using his concentrated energy attacks. He knew these things didn't want to let him in. He wondered what was inside the obelisk that so many monsters were willing to defend it. Now it was time to use dehumanization, the technique of temporarily acquiring the power of a monster. With this new ability, the protagonist was on another level. He quickly took down all the soldiers that crossed his path. The boy concentrated power, and he easily destroyed the monsters. In no time, he had taken down 130 out of 10,000. But he noticed that inside the obelisk, the soldiers kept coming out, which meant the best option would be to destroy it from the inside. So he dove in at full speed. The mission was to enter and destroy it, and in a quick burst from inside, Lopez made the obelisk collapse. With the destruction of the obelisk, the monsters were finally destroyed. Finally, the boy had completed the mission. The system confirmed the completion of this phase. Now he had some rewards. Lopez received these two things. One was an ability he needed to take the souls of the dead and resurrect them as allies. Lopez noted that before there had been no limits, but now he could only take 20 souls. He assumed that in the end, the mission hadn't been difficult enough to grant him more than this. Now he took the other reward, and magically it was an enhancement of the ability. Now he had space for 100 souls, not bad. The boy finished absorbing that ability and was finally starting to recover all his powers. However, something unusual happened. The system began to fail, as if there was interference in the system. The boy assumed he couldn't continue with the missions anymore. So, with no other options, he had to return to Earth. But when he returned to the building, mysteriously, Sika's body had completely disappeared. Someone had erased her from the scene. So the boy finally decided to go home. Lucia was there waiting for him. Dinner was ready. Lopez arrived just in time for lunch. The boy stated that the world had changed too much. Now everything revolved around monsters and hunters. Martha noticed that her son understood how things worked now, and apologized for not telling him. She was afraid he might suffer anxiety and end up bedridden again. But Lopez told her not to worry. For the last 10 years, the two of them had fought to keep this family together. So now it was time for him to fight for them. Hours passed like this. This was the clan of souls where Tomas worked. Here was the boy talking with the protagonist. Lopez was telling him about Sika, assuring him that someone wanted to hurt him. He knew that Tomas had power and needed to protect his mother and sister while he was away. He had gotten involved in the business of someone powerful and needed to bring the culprit to light soon. Now let's move to the culprit who was causing the protagonist's worry. Serp received the report that Sika had been eliminated, but he remained calm. The trial examination would take place very soon. There, his little experiment could take the opportunity to eliminate him. The subject referred to his younger brother, whom we will call Bors. The boy was awakened with a rank power. Serp asked the doc if he was ready to start the drug injection. Bors was determined to become someone of S rank, so he would do whatever it took. Then the process began. This drug in Bors was, of course, illegal. But thanks to the script, the association couldn't detect the drug. What is true is that Lopez would soon face annoying and dangerous subjects. The doctor saw that the boy was having problems. But Serp told him to continue. His brother could handle it. And thus Bors would significantly increase his power. The process was concluding, but it seemed he wouldn't survive the drug. However, Serp was convinced that the boy would succeed. Bors awoke full of energy. He had greatly improved his power levels. Now he was ready to face anyone. And Serp was happy. Finally, his little mouse was starting to grow teeth. Let's return to Lopez, who received a message from Tomas, saying that the tests would provide them with weapons and equipment for the exam. The boy said he was little interested. Anyway, just using his strength would be enough to pass any test. However, the boy had a trick that could be very useful. It turned out that Lopez could wear his armor without anyone noticing. So he opened his inventory and took out the Dagon boomerang. He needed to test something. It turned out that the system gave him the option to overwrite weapons. So this super weapon became a simple stick. This helped Lopez because that way he could use his weapons without being reprimanded. Now he needed to go to the Pantheon to find something else. The boy headed straight to the burning lands of an ancient king in hell. Lopez thought it would be difficult, but it would be worth it. And the first enemies crossed the boy's path. Now he had to deal with this troop of wolves. The system gives us several details. This place is where the boy can improve his weapons. The difficulty was quite high, as was the goal, which is to destroy all hostiles. He thought this situation was ideal to use the soul prison. The boy made a cut on his hand to tame one of these beasts. So he charged in at full speed to catch it. And in a quick, powerful move, this monster was completely eliminated. Now he wanted to take down a few more. The Dagon easily destroyed all the soldiers. The weapon was tremendously powerful. These wolves couldn't do anything to stop him. Now he had taken down 33 out of 100 enemies. The boy stopped the destruction. That was enough for him. Now he summoned his new soldiers. This fire soldier attacked Lopez, but a blue specter materialized. It was another wolf, but it was a soul in service of the protagonist. And they were strong compared to the others. Some beasts kept appearing. All the soldiers that the Dagon eliminated were now part of the Shadow Army. Lopez gave the order, eliminate the enemy. So the battle between the two sides began. The protagonist was relaxed, watching everything that was happening. He wondered why Tomas liked to smoke. It really didn't feel good to him. A fire wolf destroyed a shadow. The original soldiers were not as weak as Lopez had imagined. Lopez remarked that this was something to appreciate. They would be valuable allies later on. The wolf charged at the boy, but before it could reach him, something grabbed it from behind. Lopez explained that his soldiers would always regenerate as long as he was alive. His fallen men showed no hesitation, even while fighting against their own brethren. However, he still needed to absorb many more souls. So Lopez would quickly get this done. The boy increased his energy, ready to make a great leap, asserting that after this phase, another awaited him. So there was much to do. Then he took a gigantic leap into the air, overloaded with energy. He thought he could eliminate hundreds of these monsters in just a few hours. He didn't want to linger in this hot desert. The boy soared several hundred meters above the ground, fixing his sights on the midpoint of all the enemies. He then launched himself at maximum speed with all his might. The wolves could only watch as if a meteorite were falling upon them. The explosion against the ground was overwhelming, creating a massive blast that completely destroyed the hostiles. Now let's return to the earth. This woman was eliminating a virtual monster. This girl was quite powerful. It was a training session and we'll call her Vale. This guy is the leader of this clan, we'll call him Victor, and he liked the performance of the strongest. The guy next to him stated that the girl had things to improve, and there were still 10 days left. Victor requested that they increase the difficulty. There were still areas to work on. This man talked about Bourse, ensuring that this boy had an astounding level. Vale needed to push herself if she wanted to improve. It turned out Vale was Class B, and Bourse was more than likely to have surpassed Rank A. They needed to do everything possible for the girl to enhance her power. But what irritated Victor the most was that Serp was a cheater. Last year they cheated, but there was nothing more to do but trust that Serp wouldn't cheat again. Victor said he didn't trust anyone, especially not a cheater like Serp. He knew that Vale's only rival was Bourse, unless another powerful monster appeared. Back to that monster, which only needed one soldier to complete this mission phase. But that soldier was still alive beneath him. So the boy pulled out his dagger and eliminated him once and for all. The mission was finally complete. On this occasion, he received no reward. What happened instead was that all the souls fused to create an orb. It was a key to activate the entrance to the next mission. A kind of temple rose, constructing itself before the boy's eyes. The protagonist assumed that this was where he needed to place this key. So he went there and placed it. Then ancient magic activated, causing a gigantic serpent to emerge from the sand. The mission was to earn the recognition of this monster. The boy was confused. He always had to eliminate the enemy. Now he would have to play it interesting. So he asked the serpent to ask whatever it wanted. He would give an answer that would impress it. The author of this work is quite random, often selling a lot of hype for ridiculous things, and sometimes doing great things unexpectedly. In summary, Lopez attacked this giant serpent, because simply put, the monster was mocking him. So, activated his demonization. He took a massive leap toward the monster, destroying it completely in one blow. The boy struck it on the head, causing the monster to explode entirely. Remember, no matter how random it seems, Lopez is a king of hell and will not hesitate to eliminate anyone who disrespects him. The boy realized something. This serpent would not be eliminated so easily. Let's say it was also a celestial being. Now it was furious because the boy had attempted to destroy it. But the protagonist didn't plan to run. He was afraid of nothing. The monster charged at the boy, but Lopez took good advantage of that unbridled fury. He opened the creature's mouth because something good lay inside. A good upgrade for his weapon. It would be interesting to see what it could do when fused with his sword. The boy entered the serpent's mouth. It felt as if something were being torn from its throat. So it spat to expel Lopez from its body. The protagonist emerged and jumped, now ready to attack. The boy said that this way he could take full advantage of this artifact. Now his weapon transformed into an infernal fire sword, which even regeneration couldn't counteract. The monster charged directly. Now, with this upgrade, the boy dealt a devastating thrust to the monster's face. He didn't stop at the head. With immense power, he easily pierced the serpent's body. It was finally over. The system notified that the mission had been completed. The main goal was to obtain the infernal fire, and the method didn't matter. However, this weapon was at 50%. Something remained to complete it. Lopez knew he had to submit to the infernal fire if he wanted his weapon to have access to all of it. The power of the fire was consuming the boy, but he needed to complete this. Because now the sword gained the consciousness of an old friend of the boy. Remember him? I'm talking about Tofi, and obviously, he wouldn't subject the king of hell to this unnecessary trial. Tofi apologized to the boy. He hadn't been able to regain his consciousness. Lopez stated that Tofi was the king of flames. Last time they met differently, but he was glad to have his friend by his side again. The sword claimed that time was relative. After Lopez disappeared, he spent hundreds of years waiting for him. He never got to say goodbye to his king and always hoped he would return. He also told him something that happened after he left. Years after his departure, an unknown enemy broke the dimensional barrier of hell. They took advantage of Lopez's disappearance as a monarch and ravaged much of hell. As if that weren't enough, they sealed the space and time of that place. Most monsters were banished to Pandemonium. Let's say Pandemonium is hell's hell. Tofi could only think of being devoured by a guardian serpent. But thanks to the high-ranking ones, Lopez found him again. Lopez was also happy. He needed Tofi to help him with something. He also asked what that fire energy meant. This orb had no idea where it came from, but Tofi assured him it radiated energy similar to the types that invaded hell. The boy asserted that it was a reward from the system. He had never been betrayed by it, so he would take it. This was like a wild card. He had the option to go back in time a couple of times. He assumed he would need it for some moment. Now it was time to return. There were still things he could obtain, but it couldn't be helped. Let's return to the Earth at the Soul Clan. If I hadn't mentioned it, Tomas is in the same clan as Victor and Vale. His companions were talking about the guy who eliminated all the ogres and knew he shouldn't divulge information about his buddy. The clan leader arrived, stating that he needed to talk to Tomas. We'll call him Franco, but remember that Victor is the owner of the clan. Owner and director are different things. Both went to the terrace, and Franco was straightforward with the boy. Tomas knew he had to handle it well. He didn't want to compromise his friend or his job. He mentioned that he considered recruiting him but discarded the idea, understanding Lopez's conditions. Franco held Tomas in high regard. He said it was a shame that such a warrior could enhance the clan's potential. So that concluded the conversation. A few days passed, and finally the license test arrived, where the protagonist had to put his skills to the test against other important awakened ones. Here was Vale. Among the awakened ones he knew, she was the one who put in the most effort in her training without any advantages, like systems or drugs. The girl had perfect control over her sword, and took her training very seriously. She wanted to meet Victor's expectations. A monster was ready to attack, but the girl had it well measured. Unfortunately, she was only rank B, and her senses were not like the protagonist's. That's why she ended up being surprised from behind. Finding herself cornered, the test was halted. The simulation had ended. That was enough for today. Victor was always aware of her evolution, and now wanted to talk to her. The girl argued that she could have continued training, but Victor reminded her that excess is never good. But she just wanted to be up to the clan's standards and her Captain Victor's. She knew her body well and understood her limits. The girl insisted she could keep going. Victor stated that the system said otherwise. The graph showed that Vale was getting excited and losing her logic. Nobody was forcing her to overexert herself. He was still there, and she would have years to keep improving. The girl said her goal was to break into the top 5. Victor assumed she wanted to rank up. He asserted that with rank A, she could gain more fame and more opportunities. But she wasn't doing it for that. Her only reason for fighting as an awakened one was to destroy all the monsters in this world. Okay, we're going to leave it here for today. I hope you enjoyed the second part of the story. Remember, if you want to continue reading, I'll leave the details in the responses of the pinned comment. If you liked it, remember that a like and a comment help me keep growing and bring more content. With that said, a greeting, take care, bye.